concerned about moving tables because some of you are behind pillars and can't see the screens in the front. But I'm also getting some feedback, and I don't mean audio feedback. That's all been really good. Thanks, John. I'm getting some feedback from various places around the room. A lot of little conversations going on. A lot of people on their phones. This is not a classroom. I did teach math for 30 years. So I know how to interact with the classroom. But I will tell you, when you have those side conversations, you might not be interested in what's being said, or you might feel you already have a good handle on it, but you also might be distracting somebody else. So I just ask that you would respect those around you and try to hold those conversations to a real minimum. And we'll get through these, how to run an effective practice, and hopefully Tommy can jump in whenever he gets here. I would like to give you one dad joke, though, before we move on to this. Did you know that you can't run in a campground? You can only ran? Because it's past tense. Thank you. People still have a great afternoon. What's the difference between roast beef? What's the difference between roast beef and pea soup? Anyone can roast beef. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. All right. Running an effective practice. This is something that, again, we've alluded to some of these things. What you're going to have some non-negotiables and establish expectations. I would really encourage you to have a complete practice plan. Time to work on team needs. Maybe your ball control is terrible and you need to spend some time serving and passing. You know, so often I even see it at the Division I level, at the Olympic level. The team that wins the serve-pass battle and is in system more often than the other team is almost always going to win that match overall, and then have some time for competition. Have you ever been involved in a practice where you spend 45 minutes on one drill, maybe king or queen of the court, and then you scrimmage the rest of the time? Anybody? Okay. I know that's an exaggeration, but when Tommy was in high school, his high school coach would run practice kind of like that. They'd do 45 minutes of king of the court, and then the JVs would scrimmage the varsity. Not really very productive. So if you have a practice plan ahead of time, you can avoid a lot of that. Don't focus on the handout yet. We're going to get to some specific drills. But if you feel like you have a handle on some of these things and you want to kind of peruse the drills, I'll be happy to set up any of these drills using any of the tables that are here to kind of demonstrate the drill. I do have a ball, but you can see probably not a good idea with these light fixtures to actually play. Ball control, right? Yeah, having three sons that all play, you would not be surprised to find out that pepper breaks out at our kitchen table at times. All right, practice non-negotiables. Everyone in the program, a little typo there, sorry. Everyone in the program needs to be on the same page for what is expected of team members. This will look different for each program, and I'm not just talking about, Platteville versus Stevens Point, how it might look different between those two, or Green Bay versus Eau Claire. I'm talking, are there differences between your A team and your B team expectations? Maybe the B team is for fun, and the A team is for competitiveness. Those are things that you want to set ahead of time. What time is acceptable to show up? If you have practice at 9 p.m., you need to lay those expectations down ahead of time, or you're going to have people walking in at 9, and then they're going to have to change into their stuff, and all of a sudden they're not really to go until 9:10. and that happens over and over, and that just grates on you because you wanted to start at 9. So you need to lay that expectation down ahead of time and say, show up by 8:45, set up the nets, get your stuff on, so we're ready to go. Or maybe they're even stretched by 9 and warmed up by 9 with some kind of dynamic warm-up. What are the expectations for missing practice? I think if you have that laid out ahead of time, you're going to take a lot of pressure off yourself because that rule will be established. And maybe that's something you come up with together as a team. What do we expect of each other when practice is missed? Because otherwise, you've got somebody that's missing practice or they're late for practice and they're a good friend of yours and you're supposed to hold them accountable, and that creates conflict in your relationship. But if these team expectations are set up ahead of time, suddenly you're not the bad guy or bad person because you're just enforcing the team rules that everyone agreed upon ahead of time. But these are things that you want to have set up in advance. What reasons are acceptable for missing practice? Are there different expectations for the A team versus the B team? So these are all things for you to discuss. Again, don't do this alone. Do this as a group, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, or if you have a leadership council within your team, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be the officers. Different people can play different roles in that way. AJ Pierce, if you have anything to interject, feel free to just jump in at any time. Practice non-negotiables, expectations. Oh yeah, sorry, same title. What, when, and to whom should be communicated if someone's missing practice, or showing up late, or needing to leave early? Have that all worked out ahead of time. But these are things that you want to think about. What happens if practice expectations are not met once? Or what if it happens again and again and again? Again, think about it, talk about it. Different for every team, different for every program. Have it worked out ahead of time.
I think if I can just add in something too, the when specifically is important when it comes to who's going to show up late and if someone needs to leave early. Because ideally, when you're building your practice, you're planning for pretty much everybody who's going to be there in the gym. And so you need to know who's going to be there and who's not going to be there and at what times. And the earlier you know, the better.
Great point. What are the goals of the practice or / the team? You want it to just have fun or be the best team you can be. Kind of reiterating a point from before, not everyone plays club volleyball for the same reasons, that's okay. Expectations need to be communicated. Okay, so we like to say frustration happens when expectations don't meet reality. You either raise your reality or you change your expectations. When there's a gap there, that's when you have a problem. All right, so the importance of a practice plan. Effective and efficient practices can't be run without a plan. Doesn't need to spell out every detail, but there should be a plan. I think it was AJ that mentioned before, just having some things jotted down or have it on your phone, what you want to do. Without a plan, you'll end up doing the same drills over and over, which really can get boring. Or you'll spend 75 minutes playing king or queen of the court and accomplish very little. Everyone has a different schedule and different goals. How you plan is up to you and your group, what works for you and for your team / program. It can be helpful to delegate and share responsibility, especially if you have specific strengths or weaknesses.
And it's also important to be ready to adjust on the fly. I think there were tons of practices that I had where I went into it with a plan, but I had to be prepared for a backup plan, in case that other, player didn't come on time, or if they didn't show up to practice at all. That list of drills that y'all have, I think it's a really good resource, and get to know some of those drills so that you can be ready to adjust when things aren't going as planned, because that's also pretty inevitable that'll happen sometimes throughout the year.
Excellent point. And maybe you've planned on doing something for 20 minutes, and after 20 minutes you feel like, we need more time on this, and you go 30 minutes, or maybe you shorten it to 10 minutes. That's up to you to adjust that on the fly. Good point. Early season, there's a little bit more teaching. And I really think AJ made a good point before. A lot of the guys players have not played before. They walk into the college scene and they're like, oh, this looks like fun. Or one of their friends is playing and they bring them along. But there's just more opportunities on the female side starting to play when you're in 5th, 6th, 7th grade and you get those fundamentals taught to you, sometimes well, sometimes not so well. Sorry, that was a snarky comment as a coach. So you have to spend more time teaching early in the season. Sometimes people will put the plan on a whiteboard or they'll post it if they have it written out so that everybody can see it. Plans should include time and purpose, emphasis, and or explanation of a drill, and then include reminders or important updates so you remember to share. So all of that stuff, as much detail as you can have, the better. And a lot of the drills that are on your handout have a lot of those specifics.
And give yourself time to really invest. Right now, I just finished my first week of coaching 8th grade boys basketball, and I was reminded that I need to have enough time built into a drill or a teaching fundamentals, whatever it is, to be able to walk around and spend time with players that might need that teaching. It's not good enough necessarily to just overview the fundamentals of form or a drill and then expect that they get it right away. Plan that time so that you can invest and engage during the drill or the teaching.
Great point. Thank you. Here's 3 examples of different practice plan outlines, and I'll let you read those for yourself. But these are just things that just kind of generic, but then you can plug in whatever specific. There are several serve pass drills on your handout. Maybe you do some position specific work. Maybe you've got a really good middle blocker on your team, or a really good setter. And if you're fortunate enough to have more than one net, you can take your middle blockers, your setters, and your liberos / DSs on one court, and you're doing a combination drill that involves a toss, a pass, and working on different varieties of quick attacks, while the other court is going to be your pin hitters and maybe some other DSs, and you're working on serve pass stuff or out of system attacking stuff. So you can kind of break that down like that, and really you want the most reps possible in the time you have allotted. Remember, when you're playing 6-on-6, only one person out of 12 is touching a ball at a time. When you're doing some drills and getting repetition, you're getting a lot more touches and a lot more chances to improve and get better. So here's just some ideas on some different templates, and you can plug in drills for that. Any questions for Tommy, AJ, or Pierce? Tommy's not here yet, I don't think. Any questions for those guys? Anything come up in your brain? Pierce, AJ, any final thoughts before we get into some of these drill demos?
Something that I found effective, kind of going back on the competition side of things, you can implement competition into a ton of different drills, but the competition doesn't have to be right away. It can be just modeling the drill, having them do the drill, and then you incorporate competition. I think that can be a really effective way, because then there's a goal of, I want to beat that other team, so I'm going to work better on this drill. And when there's not that competition within a drill, sometimes, players can be lackadaisical and kind of go half-heartedly and go through the motions.
Good, thanks. All right, so I think AJ, Pierce, you guys can sign off now. Thank you for being here. Can you give these guys a hand for being here? AJ's over in Minnesota as a
Good luck, everyone.
As a prosthetist orthotist. If you don't know what a CPO is, he started as a kinesiology major, and now he is helping people regain their mobility and independence with prosthetics and orthotics. Very rewarding profession. working in an office over in Roseville, Minnesota. And Pierce, as he mentioned, works with middle schoolers as a prevention specialist, working with kids to keep them away from substance abuse and other challenging things. So thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, next up, I guess what I would like is, are there any drills on that handout? Now's a great time to focus on the handout. Are there any drills on that handout that you would like to see demonstrated? Otherwise, I'll just pick a few and get some of you guys up out of your chairs to help demonstrate. I'll give you a couple minutes to look at it, and then we'll get into this.
You can stop by.